I'm going to demonstrate making a corrugated box with art on it. I'm actually going to do art on both sides. That can be a little challenging, so I just want to show one way to do that. So again, this is corrugated. I'm using E-flute, and it's holding this light bulb. So I developed my die line. This is really hard to see because I have this very lightly printed, because I'm going to use this for my colored mock-up. So I don't want it to be so pronounced. But I developed the die line and I refined it. So it's a little different than this, and I made some adjustments. I was a little off in my spine. It's not quite closing. I wanted to add just a little bit more material here so it sits nice and tight. And eventually what I'm going to do is have this particular package is going to be sealed with a tape seal all around these three surfaces. And I'm going to integrate a tear strip into the tape seal. So I think that'll be kind of nice. So the tape seal will be quite bold. I'm going to do it in a nice contrasting color. What it'll have is it'll have a laminated string in the center, like a pull tab on a FedEx envelope. So you put it into position and then you just pull on that center thing and it breaks it apart. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to make it in a yellow color so it'll look really nice against the blue. So we'll have two yellow bands of color on there. So when you open it, it's going to be part of the aesthetic of the box. So everything, the whole box will be blue. And I am going to, since we have the craft board, the board that we have now is craft on both sides. So what I want to do is I don't want this craft look on the inside. So I'm going to laminate white paper on the inside, and then all the other parts will be blue. So in this situation, these will be white in here and in here, which I think will look nice. The bulb is white. I think it'll look really great with the blue. So I think that'll work. So this is a pretty straightforward structure. It's a double end wall. So I have a double end wall here, and then I have your basic double end wall on, oops. Oh. Don't want to cut myself. Here we go. Got it. So this folds over like this, and this is a double end wall on this side. So it's all one piece. This side is a regular double end wall, but I did not put the little slit cut in here with the tab that fits down in there. I wanted to keep it really clean on the outside. So I'm using the material, I'm just extending the material into the middle and bringing it across the bottom. So that allows me to have all the blue on the one side. So this is all going to be blue in here. But eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a separate printed piece here, which will be a nice printed full color piece that goes inside there. And that'll be the graphic on the inside explaining what the product is about. So on this side, we have the double end wall approach with our tabs, but I changed it. So I put the other tabs on this side so they lock in and hold on those tabs. So everything is sort of locking in together. And then by bringing that down, that traps that in there. So it's held in there nice and tight. And then I'm using the same approach on this end. So it's symmetrical, top to bottom. It just has a different cut to accommodate for the bulb. So this moves slightly. This tab will go down and then the bulb will fit in. So I did discover when I put the bulb in here, since I'm putting this in on center, this bottom piece is not held in. This is held in by the top. So what the bulb can do, which I don't want, is it could rock a little like this and come out of position while it's in the box. So what I ended up doing is I modified this little detail at the end here. I made this material come up a little bit. I dropped this curve down. So this end of the bulb, when it goes in here, will sit slightly down, and the thread pattern here will go under the cardboard as it fits in here. So it won't be able to rock up. So once the bulb is in here and locked in position, it becomes an integral part of the interlock. It's everything's holding everything together, and it's nicely protected. So that'll work, and I have that on the next iteration that I'm going to do for this. So right now, this one just sits there. Okay, so that turned out well. So I am going to use this as my white piece of paper. So this is just from Staples. This is the regular print paper, and I have this light gray line on here. And I'm just doing that because I want all my die cuts. I want to cut this all out and do my folds in this new mock-up. I'm not going to try to take paper and put it on the existing mock-up. You can do that, but it's a little challenging. So I have this for one side, and then this is the blue part. So this is on slightly thicker paper. Again, I just got this from Staples. And we'll see how the ink holds up. It looks like it might be a little brittle. I'm not sure. If we can get laser printers, or you have them at school, That could be better, but I'm not sure the limitations on sizes. So there's a lot of variables about how to print that. So we'll see how this works. I'm not sure if that'll work. And I'm going to be using the craft. This is the craft material I brought to school. So it's craft both sides, but it's an E-flute. It's actually a very nice piece of board. So if you're doing something in craft, it's perfect. But I wanted to clean this up a little bit and make it the white and the blue. So there's a couple ways to do this. What we need to do is we need to orient this piece of art on this side, and the die line, because I don't have a lot of copy. I just have these two components because I wanted to show how to demonstrate how to do this. I need to orient this panel right here is this panel on the die line. So what's going to happen is this is going to have to be adhered to this side, so all of that will line up. Now this is where it gets a little crazy to do this. I have another tutorial for the Corrugated Box that I think I did with Twin Tack. Twin Tack is a sticky paper. It's like a big piece of tape, but it's on paper, so it has some thickness to it. So I ended up just using 2 pieces of board from Staples, or the thicker paper, and gluing it together with the Twin Tack, and it still was pretty thick, so it didn't fold as nicely as it should have. So here, I really don't want to add too much to the E-flute, because this might not fold very nicely, so we'll see how this works. So now I'm adding some paper to this. I don't want it to get all wrinkled, and we'll try, see how it goes. So what I've discovered is there's a couple ways to do it, and I know you guys have some techniques, so there's many ways to do this. I'm just going to suggest one way to do this. We have to orient. So what I've done is I printed my paper exactly to an 18 by 20 inch dimension, and I did that for both of these. So now these are exactly the same size, so I can actually use the outside of this cut piece of paper as my guide, as long as my board is exactly the same size. So all I have to do is get this paper on this board and line up with the edge perfectly, and then do the same thing on the other side, and then everything should line up. Easier said than done. So I started off with spraying the back of the paper, and I was coming in here. Let me find a corner so you can see. And I started with my corner. I tried to put I'm holding the paper up in the air, and I put the corner down, and I'm trying to lay it down evenly. And it's hard. It was hard to get that to line up, so it didn't quite work. So I ended up peeling it up. I was lucky to get it off, and I wanted to try a different approach. So I found that this works well. So what I did was I took the paper, and I just turned that over and laid that down. Let's see if we can see this edge here. Yeah, okay, I'm gonna focus on this edge, because this is the edge that I have trimmed, and I'm orienting my fluting. If you remember correctly, we need to get the fluting in the right direction. So that's this little detail on the end there. So I'm trying to get that flute to run in this direction, and that's how it's going to work with my design. So once I figured that all out, what I did was I took the board and I ended up spraying the board with spray mount. I actually used photo mount. There's several different kinds. So some that's really, really strong. It's industrial grade. Photo mount's pretty good, but it dries quickly, so you have to move fast. And this is a relatively large area. So again, wear masks, go into spray booths outside, and spraying a nice even coat on there. And I would go pretty heavy. This isn't like the repositionable spray mount where we want to peel it up. We want this on there permanently, because I don't want it to buckle. So you spray a good amount and get it on there, and then put into position as quickly as you can. So what I liked about spraying the board and not the paper is this is a little easier to manipulate. I can hold this. So what I ended up doing, let me turn this sideways so I can kind of show. So with this, let's say I have the spray on this side and I have this lined up. So all I really had to do, I can make this board float in space. All I had to do is lay the board on this edge. It's a lot easier to hold. It's not so flexible. So once I got that leading edge into position, I just laid it down and pressed it down. And that worked pretty well. It was pretty quick. So I like that. So once you get that into position, so it's like perfectly lined up, you have to keep track. Now I know it's this little panel right here is going to be the panel that has that logo on it. So I have to keep, I don't know, make sure I don't scratch this up. To keep track of that. So this is going to be end up going on the front of the box. So you have to just keep track. So when I turn this over, And I actually turn this piece of paper over, and then I go back out and I'm going to spray this side and then put this in position. Just make sure you keep track of everything and line it up. And then the same process. And once you do that, everything should line up nicely. So I have that done, and I started cutting that out. So here's the blue side, and I have the die line on this side, and here's where that piece of art's supposed to be, so that's ready to go. Another technique, and I just did that on here just to show that I have a light little line right here on that panel that runs all the way to this edge. So if I had a random piece of cardboard or I wasn't able to line it up by the outside, you could line up, like I could make a little tick mark on the board on the other side, and I could line up the other piece of art on the back. So there's a couple ways to do this, but the idea is to get that perfectly lined up. So I'm just going to finish cutting this out, and we can fold it up. So this stuff is quite fragile. I actually got a scratch in here, but as it turns out, that scratch ends up being in the waist area here, so it's lucky, but we have to be careful. So when you're cutting, so I'm putting the blue down on this cutting board, which has got some stuff on it, so I could damage it. So you just have to be careful moving it around and scraping and scratching and all that stuff. So again, it's the E-flute, so it's pretty easy to cut. It is pretty dense, so sometimes you might have to make 2 passes. Like beautiful comps, final comps. These are still mock-ups. Still nice to keep them as clean as possible. So it makes a nice presentation. But they are just for design. I can see as I'm doing this, there are little nuances. This is only E-flutes, but there are little tolerances. Like I have a fold here, and then I have this little cut slightly inside. When I say slightly, with E-flute, we're talking about 16th of an inch or 1/8 of an inch. That's about 1/8 of an inch of clearance there. And I have a little bit of space here. So when this folds up and that tab comes in, it gives us enough room. And certain things don't line up deliberately. Like I have a fold here, and that's a fold. I know this is hard to see, these little lines, but that's a fold inside. So things fold inside one another. It's a lot to keep track of. But they do make a big difference, these little tolerances. I'm going to cut both of these at the same time. So I know I keep cutting out these boxes with a triangle. It's probably not the best idea to do that because the triangle is plastic and the knife can cut right into it. So you should use a metal edge, but I like the plastic because what I do is I like seeing through to the rest of the die. So when I'm cutting, if it's opaque, sometimes I don't see certain things and it's hard for me to tell where the cut stops. So I do that. It's not the best practice, but for me, it's more important to see what I'm doing than protecting the triangle. So this curve also dips down a little bit further than the original, so I can get that bulb to sit down below center and get this part to go underneath. That took a moment to think about how I was going to do that without changing the design too much. I was a little disappointed that I discovered that after I built it. But now that I have a good solution for that, it's okay. All right, so we got all the details cut out. This is all nice and clean. I started folding, scoring, and the material is holding up pretty well. So it's not bad. Nice rolled edge, and I'm not cracking the blue. It looks like it's starting to crack slightly. I think this will work out well. Okay, excellent. So I'm going to continue with some of that scoring. So again, we have the fluting. I have the fluting running in this direction because that's actually the majority of my folds, my structural folds, especially with this double end wall and these two really close to one another. I'm going against the flute. The flute's going this way, I'm going against it, which is the nicer of the two folds. If you remember in class, we talked about that. So that breaks nice. Not breaks, but it folds really nice. These scores here are going with the fluting. So they're a little bit more delicate, and in a way there are less of them. I do have my hinge in that direction, which is a little bit of a shame, but it's okay, it works. So I need to be very careful with these. So let's go, I'm gonna do my scoring. These scores that I'm doing right now are gonna go against the fluting. I'm using this, the wood stick that I had given you with the scoreboard, or you can use the back of a pen. I even use this back of the knife, as long as you don't cut yourself with the other end. So there's lots of ways to do that. And you got to allow a little bit of tolerance, because you got to think about it. I'm going to put this stick or this tool up against here, so it's not going to line up precisely like with the knife. So you have to kind of back off a little bit and give yourself a little room so you can end up getting that fold. Now I'm pressing pretty hard here because I'm pressing right through the fluting. So you just have to kind of get a judgment on how that's going to work. All the scores against the fluting. So now these are going with the flute. So now we need to be a little more gentle. If I press too hard, I'll probably end up tearing. So I am doing this very lightly. Don't want to tear. And I'm just going to fold that up just enough to get that to go, and then I'll fold it a little bit more after I take this up. Okay, now I have these double lines here. I actually want one fold in the middle. This is the spine, so I'm going to pull this back to about here, and I want to get that one fold right in the middle there without tearing, like this. There we go. That's perfect. Right in the center. And then we'll do this here. Okay, and then we just have this one right here. So all our designs are going to be different. So it is a bit of a judgment call to just figure out which way you want the fluting to go. Okay, so now it's going to try to bend these. All right, not bad. Okay, this. All right, so that's good. These with the, against the fluting are a little easier to manage. Okay, I didn't do those. This. Okay. So those are that's with the flutes. Pull that in. This. So these scores and things are usually done on equipment. So since we're doing this by hand, kind of have to encourage the material to bend. Here's that double fold. That turned out excellent, clean. So now, like I had shown before, let me get my pencil. This fold here is going to fold the other direction. So I want to be very careful. I'm going to encourage these folds. Let's see, even this one here. I'm going to score it from the inside because I don't want to have that as a sloppy fold. So that goes that way. Got that one, this one. Oh, and the big one is the spine here on the back here. So let's do this and do that. So now this is going to be a little challenge. I want to rub on the side here with the color very carefully. Oops, it's slightly off. Move that over a little. All right, see the fold a little, it's not perfect. But we'll do the best we can. This. That. All right, so these folds, there we go, that's nice. These will go in the other direction. This. I'm just going to try to fold that a little bit more. This. Okay. All right, not bad. So let's just make sure everything is folding nicely, and then we're just about ready. So again, this is a non-glue. Doesn't have to be, but it's just the way that this double end wall type of structure works. It's actually kind of impressive that there is no glue. Oops, I got a little bit of a tear here. That'll be on the inside. You know, we're not gonna, oh, look at those. That's because I scored both sides and it tore. And I'm tearing right through that piece of liner paper that I put on the inside. But that will not be visible, so I think we should be okay with that. I'm just gonna make sure that this is gonna fold up nice. This. Okay. Just gonna push these back slightly so I can get that to fold up. Okay, this. And then we have that. Okay, it's good. Just gonna back off. Let's hope I don't tear this spine. It's really not sitting nice in the center. I'm just going to try to encourage that to come over a little bit more over here. There's the wood. Let's see if that'll help. Yeah, it's okay. Slightly off. I really want that fold to go all the way back if I can. Okay, so that's that extra material that I added that I didn't have on my first attempt to get that to line up. Looks like I could even used a little bit more material. Okay, so that's the spine area. All right, not bad. Getting a few. Okay, we're good. Okay, so let's try the assembly. All right, so I'm just going to hold this up. Bring this down, put that in, looks good. Oh, I have a little extra material here. That's right, I forgot to take that off. There's, I made these slightly long because I wanted to make sure that those were going to touch in the middle. So let's just trim a little bit off each one, and then that should get that to line up. This. So a little designing on the fly. Okay, push that in. close. Wow. Okay. That's tight. That's quite the fit. Huh. All right, not bad. Looks pretty good. Yes, that's the cover. Excellent. Yeah, so the white in here is not bad. I mean, I could have, since, you know, I'm printing both sides, I could have made that blue. But I think we're in pretty good shape. All right, so this will be similar. Fold this in. I'm going to put these tabs to the inside. And then that goes in here. Very nice. Same thing on this end. It's always nice to have three hands, but it doesn't work that way. Okay. Get that to stay in. Alright, so this is very big. I did the same thing here, huh? Let's see how much material I do have. I have quite a bit. Okay, same thing here. I added some extra, and I forgot to take it away on the last iteration of the die line. So these aren't lining up quite right. Most cases, you can always remove material. It's hard to put it back. So it's sometimes a little extra to give yourself the ability to do some fine tuning at the end. Can be beneficial. I mentioned this is the bulb is now leaning in down here, so it's not perfectly. I want it to be perfectly on center, but I just angled it in just a little bit so I could get this tip to sit underneath that edge. So now this bulb cannot rock out of position. It can only go up, but it can't because the lid will be on top holding that down like this. So that's how that's going to look. Yes, that came out. You know, I have a few little white details. The one part I really can't control is we are seeing the craft fluting on some of these raw edges here. I made a mock-up out of another material, which was white fluting. So it's white on white. So the fluting inside is even white, which is quite nice. I just ran out of the material. This is the last piece I had. And this was very dense. This is like a double E-flute, they call it. It has 2 layers of material laminated together to make the fluting, so it's really rigid and it breaks on the folds. It starts to tear a little bit because it's too strong. So I'd like to get a hold of this white on white, white on white on white, front, back, and inside with a little less density of flute. It's really, really nice material. So I would probably ultimately make this out of that. So these little edges in here could be white. So that turned out nice. It's good. So I just put this art in here for position. Like I had mentioned, I have some yellow tape. So I'm actually going to demonstrate how this might look because it kind of matches the branding. I'm going to put this yellow tape around these open seal areas here, and there'll be like a little string or something. So you just have to take the string and peel that, and you'll end up with this nice yellow band. So I think that'll look great. I'll finish that up and show how that works. So I'm going to put a piece of art in here, which I have. So adding some of the details finishes the pack. So it's nice with the graphics. Have a little bit of branding on the side. The branding on top is kind of functional too. It orients the package. So when the consumer opens it, you know, the bulb is presented in the correct direction. It's not all upside down. So I guess the main thing I added here was this tape. The tape's a little off on color, but basically it'd be, you know, this yellowy orange color. So what I'm suggesting is this would be one piece of tape that goes all around the whole pack, and it would have a tearaway, a center section or a string or something like that, that you could just tear that away, and it would leave part of the tape on the top and the bottom, so it almost becomes kind of a graphic detail component on there. So that's neat. That's the top, so this would be the front, and then I'm just putting the mailing label on the back. So even if you had the pack around, it's kind of on the bottom side. So when you tear that open, and then you open it up inside, then we have this additional graphic here. And this could even be a nicer graphic, a better printing job. The box could be like 1, maybe 2 color, very simple printing. And this could be a full color insert, whatever it might be. I just put some art together to talk about what that how that would look. There's even potential for some other art around the bulb or behind it. So I think the white looks good in here. It's nice and clean because we have that's part of our color motif, the blue, white, and the yellow. So that's it completed.